Whenever we take my wife's Jeep off-road, we like to air down the tires just so we can have a little more comfort and a little bit better traction. But that means bringing an air compressor with us so we can air up at the end of the day. And we've been toting around this big old portable air compressor. And in a two-door, it's just not convenient because you don't have a lot of space. Plus, a portable compressor just isn't as convenient as having a hard-mounted compressor system. And so today in this video, we're going to install this brand new air compressor mounting kit system in my wife's two-door Jeep Wrangler. This is going to be really nice, and this is going to be a super easy install. Stay tuned. Welcome to TrailRecon, I'm Brad, and I have my wife's Jeep back in the garage today because we're going to install a hard-mounted air compressor system, which is going to be so nice. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and this kit by Grimm Offroad was recently released, and I was like, that is perfect. It's a very simple kit. It's not going to take a whole lot of time to install it, but it's going to be really nice at the end of the day coming off the trail to just pop the hood, plug in the hose, hit the switch, and she's going to be able to air up very fast. So let me show you what we've got here. This is the kit from Grimm Offroad, and this is available for the Jeep Wrangler, JL and JLU, and for the Jeep Gladiator. This is an all-inclusive kit, and after spending a little bit of time taking a look at this, I'm very impressed with how well put together this is. And the instructions, look, I'm a stickler for having some good instructions. It's 20 pages of color instructions. Everything we need to know is right in there, so this is going to make this install super easy. Now let me show you what we've got here. So we've got a dual ARB air compressor, and I have been using ARB air compressors for as long as I can remember, and they are great compressors, and having the dual is going to make things fill up pretty fast, and it's going to be nice and reliable. We also have the ARB air hose kit, which is nice to have the air hose, but most importantly, we're going to want this chuck, and I'll explain to you when we get to that point why that's important. And then the Grimm Offroad specific gear here is we've got a bracket for the air compressor, we've got a heat shield, we've got a control plate which is going to give us a mounting point for our switch and our air hose. We've got a spacer bracket. We've got two different size hoses, and these hoses are for relocating the filters so we can put these filters in a good location. We've got the high pressure hose. We've got a wire loom for the switch, which is pre-made and it's going to make install easy. I know people have challenges sometimes with wiring. I do too. We've got the ARB kit to mount up to the battery. We've got some fittings. We've got the switch. And we got a few other wires that come with the compressor kit if you're going to be installing lockers or anything like that, which we are not going to be doing. I think this is a very well put together kit. I think the install is going to be easy. The first thing we need to do though, we got to pull off this fender. So let's get started. Okay, with the tire now out of the way, now we can access the 5 10mm screws that are on the upper inner fender liner and the Christmas tree clip, which I think my Christmas tree clip is missing. But we're going to take these 10mm screws out here. Okay, now with all those screws out of the way, we've got to pull the fender off. And there are 10 retaining clips back here that you're going to have to gently give a nice little tug on. Now I know when I pulled the fenders off of my Gladiator when we were doing the wrap, we broke a couple. And it says in the instructions that it's possible you may break a few. But the good news is they're easy to replace. They actually provide the part number in the instructions. You can go down to auto parts store or your local dealer and pick them up. So we're just going to start at one end and start tugging away here. Well, I can see we already broke one. Now with all the retaining clips out, there's a wire loom here that we just have to detach, and there's a little red tab on the bottom. And sometimes it's a little bit of a funny guy to get out of there. Let's see if we can get it with a screwdriver here. There we go. Okay, got that red tab out, and then you should just be able to press, and that pops out. And the fender is removed, just like that. All right, with the fender out of the way, now we can get to the meat and potatoes here. And so there is a couple things that we've got to do. One, we need to remove this wheel sensor bracket and pull those bolts off and disconnect that, and then that's where our spacer is going to go. And then our master cylinder, the brake master cylinder, there's a nut up here that we're going to pull off, and then we will just test fit and make sure this bracket lines up with everything, which it looks like it's going to do. And I think this is going to be pretty quick from here on out. All right, the directions show just a slightly different wire loom setup than what I have here. So there may have been some modifications to the newer versions or the Gladiator. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this spacer plate right on here, and then we're just gonna test fit the compressor mounting plate. And it does say that for the JL model that you're gonna use this inner hole up here, and if you have the Gladiator, it will be this outer hole, but that looks like it fits perfectly. So now that we know it fits, I'm going to pull this off and we'll get the compressor mounted. Now to get the compressor mounted, I'm going to flip this over like that, and then there's a little hole here that's specific for the two cables that we will be connecting later, and that's going to slide up under there, and it looks like those holes will line up perfectly. And then I really like the fact that they supplied this heat shield, which is going to help keep some heat off the compressor. So now it's just a matter of lining everything up and bolting it down. Okay, mounting that up was super simple. Now what we need to do is I need to pull these little plugs here that are for the filters. And normally the filters would be mounted right here, but we're not going to do that in this system. They've thought about where this compressor is located in the wheel well there, and putting the filters there would just mean they would just get clogged up and super dirty. So what we're going to do is we are going to install some of these fittings here which have a male barb on them. And I'll put a little Teflon tape on there here in a second, but you can see those are just going to screw right on there, and then there's going to be some hoses that are going to relocate them up to the engine bay, which is where our switch is and our hose plug-in is. So that was a great thought. Also, we got to put a fitting on top here to mount the high pressure hose. So we can get some Teflon tape and we'll install that, and then I think we're almost ready to put this on. All right, lastly what we're going to do is we're going to pop this guy out of here. Little Teflon tape on this 90-degree fitting, and this again is for our high pressure hose. You could use the liquid Teflon if you have it. I just happen to have this. And screw that guy in there. We are in business. Okay, now we're ready to mount the compressor in its permanent home. And just one little thing to point out, we're going to be using the same nuts that we took out, and having a little magnetic tray like this is super handy. These are cheap, guys, and it makes your life so much better because you can just pop it up there like that, and it makes it easy to get to things. It's a little bit of a tight fit, to get these nuts back here, but a little patience. I'll go on there. So my wife just peeked her head in the garage and she saw this and she was like, what are you doing to my Jeep? I told her I was installing the air compressor, but I didn't tell her I was gonna have to rip the fender off and everything. But look, I'm really happy with how well this is mounted and tucked up here. She's not even gonna notice this thing, and I think that's gonna be solid for a long time to come. Getting to those nuts was a little tricky, but a little patience and just get in there and half turn, you'll get it no problem. Now what I need to do is we need to wire it up and then run all the hoses for the airlines. And what I really like is that Grimm Offroad built and provided a wire loom with their kit just for the switch, so we don't have to mess with all the ARB wires. And we are going to use the ARB power wire that's going to go directly to the battery. So let's get this wired up. Should be pretty easy. Then we'll run the air hoses. All right, I'm not ready to hook up the electrical just yet because I want to run the air hoses. And the filter hoses I was noticing are two different sizes. I really like this because they know that from one of the pistons to one of the filters is going to be longer than the other one, and they already pre-cut everything instead of making me figure it out. Thanks guys, I appreciate that. Okay, now that we've got the electrical and the hoses coming through the engine bay, we've got to mount that to something. And so this is the control unit mount. And so what we need to do here is attach the two filters. And so we've got a couple of those barb fittings, but this time they have female connectors on them, so we can screw the filter right on there. And these are plastic, so we definitely don't want to over tighten those, just nice and snug. I think something like that. So that looks good. So we'll hook both of those up. And then we need to hook up the high pressure fitting using this 90°, but I need to get some Teflon tape again. Okay, before we can mount the bracket on, we need to take this 10mm bolt out of here. And then they've supplied all new hardware, and the one thing that we have to do is put this little washer right there, and that's going to make this whole plate even, so that was very clever. And I'm going to hook up the hoses, so the longer one to the furthest one away. Go, there she is. It's right there, and then this guy. Hoses might need to be shortened just a hair, but we'll make it work. There we go. Okay. So that's going to go in there like that. All nice stainless steel bolts. Appreciate the stainless steel. Yeah, that hose is a little too long, so we're going to trim those up in a minute, but let's just get this mounted properly first. Make sure it all fits. That looks like it's going to be good. And then this switch wire actually come through here, like that. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, now we're going to hook up the switch, and if you look at the back of the switch, it's really tough to see, but there's two little arrows that point up, and that tells you what direction it needs to go. I mean, it's pretty common sense because it says ARB on this side. But just for wiring, on the one side there are 3 terminals, on the other side there are 2 terminals, so you want to hook up on the 3 terminal side, and the color code sequence is going to be black, red, and purple. Okay, and now we're going to put the switch into its new home, and it should just snap into place. Just like that. There we go. That's nice. That's clean. All right, let's hook up the high pressure hose. Now we're going to install that ARB chuck that came with that hose kit, and this is just really convenient to have, but you could go pick up something similar at a hardware store. These are just really nice. All right, I double checked all the hose fittings. I double checked the bolts to make sure everything was tightened down properly, and I made the connection to the battery, and I think we've got it all done. Now, one thing to mention before I start this up is you don't want to run your compressor unless your engine is running, because a compressor pulls a lot of power, and so you need the help with the alternator to keep things going. So just keep that in mind anytime you're using your compressor. Now, I'm going to start the Jeep and turn this on, and it'll probably only just kick on for a second or two, because once the pressure reaches a certain pressure inside the compressor, it will kick off. So what I'll need to do is put the fender on, put a tire on, deflate the tire, and let's see if we can actually inflate a tire. Maybe we'll time it and just see how it goes. So, all right, let me start the Jeep. Fingers crossed this works. Here we go, moment of truth. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's good news. All right, let me put this back together and let's inflate a tire. All right, I got everything put back together, and I deflated the tire down to 15 PSI. Now, before we do this little test that'll give us a good idea about how long it'll take to do all 4 tires, I want to let you know that this kit from Grimm Offroad is exclusively available right now to E3 Overland members. So if you're not a member of E3 Overland, click the link down below, go sign up. You can pick up this kit. We've got a lot of other great content over there and lots of great discounts. So go check that out. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Okay, let me start the Jeep and let's get this going. All right, not too bad. We took a 35-inch tire from 15 to 35 PSI in 1 minute and 29 seconds. That's pretty nice. This is going to be a nice little upgrade. I love how clean this is. Super easy to install. You guys can do in your garage with some basic tools. I think this is a great product you should definitely go check out. If you're visiting TrailRecon for the first time, hit that subscribe button. Love to have you as a member of the TrailRecon team. Thanks for watching.